The views and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the company, owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
Welcome to Bermuda's Daily Talk Show. It's the Daily Hour.
ChatGPT did become the world's most downloaded non-gaming app.
Literally the job of everyone in government to address the media and the public.
What are your thoughts, audience? What are your thoughts on Zandy Silva as the deputy PLP leader?
A community that can't feed itself is a community that,
What you may not know, though, is that Bermuda, we have a connection with Epstein, too.
Things that people are doing right, the youth are doing right, that is not being advertised enough.
When you see your access to US dollars disappear, that's when you have a problem.
If you've got a town in the UK with a similar sized population, this place absolutely outshines it.
It's Friday, the 6th day of March, 2026. Welcome to Bermuda's Daily Talk Show. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by the BAC Group of Companies, HSBC Bermuda, Medical House Lindo's, People's Pharmacy, and big love to Hot 107.5 for ensuring that we can pump through the radio airwaves with these most important community conversations. I'm Jamal Hartman, and Teo Dill will be with us in a bit to bring you the latest in the news break. How's everyone feeling today? It is Friday, the final day of the traditional work week. Yeah, you all made it. You all made it. Cher's favorite day of the week is most of you all's favorite day of the week. What do you have planned for the weekend? Everyone, so many people I know live for the weekend, and then when the weekend comes, you think you're going to relax, you're going to spend time with family, and you end up finding yourself right back where you probably don't want to be on a Monday morning. So anyway, you made it to Friday. Have a wonderful final day of the traditional work week. Greetings, everyone, and thanks for making us part of your daily routine. A good one today as we welcome the Minister of Tourism, Transport, Culture, and Sport, the Honorable Owen Darrell, onto the show. We're going to be discussing the rideshare legislation that the government has tabled. So that was a big topic we discussed on Monday, and the minister is here today. So looking forward to this conversation. Yes, you all had some reservations, so he's here to answer your questions and engage directly with you. The Daily Play is going to be a things you should know. I'm not quite sure everyone should know this, but I'll tell you why I definitely should know. Yeah. Don't forget to subscribe on our website. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. All right, folks, we're going to jump right into it. Question of the morning. What are your thoughts on the public school test results? And are you concerned about the test results of public schools? So you're probably like, what is Jamel on about today? Well, this is your daily discussion brought to you by our friends at Titan Express and Secure. So I received this last week, I believe. I received the below average results from our public school testing. So basically, a new report on students' performance has raised some serious questions about the state of education on the island. The latest results from Cambridge International and IGCSE exams show that Bermuda's public school students are performing below the international average in almost every subject area. These exams are part of the Cambridge International curriculum used in many schools worldwide. They are designed to measure how students compare academically with their peers across the globe. So when Bermuda's results fall below the benchmark, it's not just a local comparison, it's a global one. The Department of Education says it's aware of the challenges and plans to address the low grades through instructional reforms and targeted academic support for students. But the reality is this conversation goes beyond test scores. For years, we've been hearing about education reform, the transition away from the middle school system, the creation of signature schools, consultants coming and going, and promises that transformation is on the way. Yet parents, teachers, and students continue to ask the same questions. Are our children being adequately prepared for university and the workforce? Are we moving too fast with reforms or not fast enough? And most importantly, who is being held accountable when the results fall short? See, education is more than policy, debates, and press conferences. It's about the future of Bermuda's workforce, Bermuda's economy, and Bermuda's young people. When students fall behind internationally, the consequences don't just show up in classrooms. They show up years later in employment opportunities, innovation, and the island's competitiveness. So the question on this Friday morning, what are your thoughts on the public school test results? And are you concerned about the test results for our public school students? The exams covered Cambridge International exams, the Cambridge checkpoint assessments, the IGCSE exams across primary, middle, and senior schools. What these exams measure is English, math, science, and these tests are usually, they're used globally to measure academic progress and readiness for higher education. Education officials say they will address weak results through, as I mentioned, instructional reform and targeted academic support for students. Now, for those of you who probably don't have an idea, let me give you, let me just share with you. And I don't want to pick on any schools because I don't want to label students. And that's the tough part about having this conversation. But I will just say you can go to the Ministry of Education or the Royal Gazette and see the chart for yourself. But it is concerning. It is concerning, folks. I don't even. Whitney is, I think, the only school that was above average in English. I'll say that much. Outside of Whitney being above average for English, and that's international average, I don't believe any other public school was above average in anything. I don't know what to say. I'm literally at a loss for words. Now, let me be clear. I went public school. I am a product of public schools. Many of us tuned into this show are products of public school. Public schools produce some of Bermuda's best. They do. And we've had doctors and lawyers. We've had educators and business people. But I think when we say that, we have to understand that we're talking averages here. We're talking averages. Even if you don't have a child or a relative as a student in the public schools, this should be of great concern to you. Because this is your future workforce. If they can't read or add or figure out problems, I'm sorry. But that is not good. This is your daily discussion brought to you by Titan Express and Secure. You heard it, folks. Bermuda public school students have tested below average across English, math, and science with, according to my eyes, Whitney Institute is the only school to be above average in anything, and that was in English. All right, let's go to the audience again. What are your thoughts on the public school test results, and are you concerned about the test results of public school students? We've got Sean Smith says, no, I am not surprised with the test scores. With the amount of undue stress mentally over the years on the infrastructure, what else could you expect? I think this goes back to something I said earlier, Sean, with so much focus on policy and debates. And I said this, I've said this on numerous episodes. We tend to forget about the students and their well-being. I mean, it could be said that we've lost an entire generation of students due to politics. Let's call it what it is. I was not academically inclined. Let me be very clear. Some of my former teachers tune into this show, which I absolutely love and appreciate. They'll tell you I was not an academic. But if it's one thing I did have was parents that made sure that I would not fail. I did. I remember my old man, well, my father, I'm not going to call him old man, but I remember him saying to me when I was young, like, look, my job is to make sure you're better than me. Like those were the kind of parents I had. And I'm not saying that the education system doesn't, or politics isn't to blame. I'm simply saying that it requires the right parenting and guardianship as well, right? They knew I was not an academic. My mother got me tutoring, and I know tutoring may cost. But if she had to work overtime to make sure that it was not going to be up to the system whether I was successful or not, then she did that. I'm going to be real with you. I don't trust politicians enough to believe that they can educate our children. That may sound harsh, but that's just where I'm at with it. Let's go back to the audience. Again, audience, what are your thoughts on the public school test results, and are you concerned about the test results of public school students? We've got Shawnette Sumner says, I am not the slightest bit surprised at the results. The public school system has been on a downhill trend for decades, and many educators ought to be working somewhere else. The best are ignored. Well. Dr. Anthony Richardson says, wow, very concerned. Has there been more of a focus on physical buildings, teachers just wanting to get paid, tuned out of the government education reforms by the government and on their own doing? Good questions. Charles H. Jefferson II, he says, our education system is administratively a mess at the department and ministry level. It's inevitable that will impact schools, teachers, and ultimately students. And this is with the fewest students in history. Michelle White says there was a Facebook comment yesterday suggesting that these numbers include those challenged and don't know their own name. If correct, knowing the matrix will put in perspective. Well, it includes everyone. It includes everyone, but we're talking averages. So even if it included those challenged, that's still saying that we have a number of people that are challenged enough to bring it down. And that means that those responsible are not fixing that problem to ensure that those who are challenged are getting the assistance they need. What I don't want to do is make excuses for what's going wrong, folks. I don't want to make excuses for what's going wrong. And I'm not saying people are doing that, but here's the thing I've learned in life. We have to be honest and confront problems as they are instead of trying to ignore them and make excuses for them. When we're talking averages, there's no way to paint this picture to look good. And I say that because I am proud of being publicly school educated. And many others. We're talking, I'm going to start calling names. Teo Dill. Work Academy became private after. Maya Palacio. Myself, Dr. Kaiwan Brown, all the Barclayites who tune into this show. I'm not going to name you, so many of you. Like, we should be proud of what public education has produced. We should be proud of it. But what went wrong? How did it go wrong? And let me be very clear, because we tend to point fingers in these conversations. That's just what we do. But we always forget the role we played. The role we played, meaning that the problems that we see today did not start yesterday. The problems we see today were born out of something many years ago, whether it was in the 2000s, in the 90s, in the 80s. That's not an excuse, that's the reality. That said, because the problems started so long ago, have we not had enough time to fix them? I thought that the Bermuda Progressive Labor Party was finally getting it right. Longest serving education minister, right? Because every 2 seconds, it was a different education minister at one point. But now we have a new education minister taking things in a different direction, and maybe justifiably so. I mean, I appreciate the department being transparent with these results, but it's not a pretty picture. This is your daily discussion brought to you by Titan Express and Secure. Let's go back to the comments. We got Sherilyn Pringle says, good morning, Daily Hour family. I'm not surprised either. My daughter is 34. I took her out of not only public school, but Bermuda at 14. It was a big sacrifice, but no, it was the right decision. You know what's sad? So many people would rather take their children in out of public schools, which they're already paying for, mind you, because you take them out, you're still paying for them. We pay for public school. But because there's such a lack of belief in that system, they're willing to do whatever it takes. Some people will literally work paycheck to paycheck, take up a second, third job because they don't believe in the system. That's not how life's supposed to be, man. But we got to do what we got to do for our families, right? BTOA says it's on us as a community, families, and parents. Absolutely. The education of a child isn't the responsibility of the government or schools and educators only. That's a community thing. That's on all of us. Absolutely. We've got Shawnette Sumner says Whitney is an aided school, makes a difference. It is an aided school. But if that's the case, if we want to say that, right, there are other aided schools as well. I mean, is not St. George's Prep an aided school? And I'm only calling their name, not to be disrespectful, but because she mentioned Whitney. I don't want us to start making things like this is why. But yes, they're an aided school, but so is St. George's Prep. Monty BDA says facts on the best being ignored. Yeah, that's what Shawnette Sumner said earlier, the best being ignored. Anthony Pete says, almost 4 decades in this space. Assessment modalities need a change. Varied learners, same assessing. Take a look at the test and who has demanded that they do. We said no to our neurodivergent learner. That's unfortunate, but that's why I said earlier, if people are saying that some students with challenges are bringing the averages down, then we're not doing enough to support those students with challenges, right? Polly Ritz says these results should not surprise anyone. Manuela says, I have always said that a parent guardian should not find out that their student needs help when the report card arrives. Learning should not only take place in school. Indeed. Monday BDA says that those who are challenged aren't even close to getting the help they need. And that's a concern. That we should be up in arms about that. Suzanne Ingham says Dr. Mario Wade Smith's education gained 1.4 years every year on the public schools. You have to master 80% or you repeat the work. It's an excellent system. Government refused to help equals the mess we have now. Michelle White says, what is an aided school and how does it make a difference? An aided school like Whitney, the Berkeley, they have boards. Their boards are involved in a lot of the decisions that happen at the school. Work Academy, remember when it went private in the early to mid 90s, they had a board that decided when the public school system was going to change, their board decided getting out of that system was best. And so as an aided school, they decided to do just that. I hope I explained that in the most layman terms so everyone could understand. Traveling Charlie said these results reflect broader problems in education. Parents, teachers, and administrators all share responsibility. I keep saying parents. I keep saying parents because I don't want people to feel like education is just a responsibility of a government and educators. Um, you have to take it upon yourself to, someone said it just now, you shouldn't be learning that your child is having challenges uh, when they got the report card. Like that's a fact, right? Dr. Anthony Richardson says, what is the quality of the teachers Bermuda has in its public schools? Have parents also disengaged from being involved in their child's education? Those are decent questions. We've got Traveling Charlie says an aided school has its own board and a bit of autonomy, hire and fire their employees. Thank you. Yeah, much better than I could have said. Well, more eloquent. WKD Lama says, I'm concerned about the results and more scared that there are no solutions. There has been a slow and constant decline. Charles H. Jeffs II says the problem will impact Bermuda's future for all, even those who are educated in private schools or send their children to private schools. I applaud the minister for pausing the previous plan. I want to say that as well. You all think that I just hate on government ministers and government. I really don't. I just believe in accountability, and because this show is public, we have public conversations. But I meant to do this the other day as well. If I can be critical of the Minister of Health, then I can applaud in the same breath. And for Minister the Honorable Kim Wilson, I appreciate her asking all shores to put a pause on it and as it relates to the whole pharmacy deal. And if the Minister of Education, I appreciate the department being transparent and sharing these results, not trying to cover them or not trying to tell a story that makes them look good. I appreciate her also pausing what was previously in place and trying to do things differently. Now, how that turns out, it may not be good, but I just want this minister to come across a bit more warm. I want her to engage people because at the end of the day, the people are the ones your decisions impact. Engage them where they are. All right, folks, daily discussion brought to you by Titan Express and Secure. I'll go through these final two comments. Traveling Charlie says late assignments being accepted in high school is not helping students' behavior. They need to get rid of this policy as it does not prepare students for the workforce. They may not have a workforce acting like that. And Shawnette Sumner says we have many children in our schools who would have otherwise attended schools for children with special needs, which are now closed. Some of their results are included, albeit tests are modified. Yeah, and that's been said earlier. That they are included. And, if those schools have been closed, these students, it highlights another problem that they should have the support that's needed. I think one of the things that really bothers me about these conversations, and we've had numerous conversations over the 6 years we've done this show about public schools and public education, is how often we forget about the students. How often we forget about the students. My mother was, and I'm sharing this, you all know, I already said I wasn't an academic, but my mother was called up to the school so often that you would have thought she was a teacher. And I just asked, I mean, if a student's having trouble, and I'm not just talking behavior, I'm talking like academically, do we still engage the parents? Or are teachers like, that's not my job? I don't know. Are parents still engaging the educators? Are they showing up if the teacher calls them because they're having challenges, or the parent has to, maybe they can't leave work or they're working a second job? Like what, this is a problem, folks. I just want to see it fixed. Bermuda's future depends on those who are in our schools today. Everyone's not going to be a doctor. Everyone's not going to be a lawyer, accountant, IB executive. But everyone will have a place in the Bermuda we love. And whatever place they have will likely impact every last one of us. Brock says, sorry, is this a reason to have more engagement in the adult education school? It has a history of intentional one-on-one support. I see your point. This may be the exact reason that adult education exists today still. All right, folks, we've got to go to the news break because we've got a very special guest coming up. We talked about the rideshare legislation on Monday during the discussion period, and the Minister, Owen Darrell, we were not actually having a show today. We have the Minister of, it's a mouthful, Minister of Tourism, Transport, Culture, and Sport. I think I got it all. Minister Owen Darrell coming on after this. So if you have any questions, comments, you can send them through. But let's give some love to Titan Express and Secure, then go to the news break with Teo. After the first commercial break, we will have the minister on. In the meantime, you know what to do. Help us beat the algorithms. If you're streaming with us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, X, or Instagram, you can give us a thumbs up, a love, a like. Make sure you share the conversation with your friends, family, and colleagues, and we'll be back in a few. Stick with us.
The Daily Discussion is brought to you by Titan Express and Secure. Titan Express delivers safe, professional, and reliable transportation and tours across the island. From island tours to cultural experiences, they set the standard. And Secure is your go-to for property management, waste management, and residential and commercial services. Visit securebda.com. Professional, punctual, and reliable service is their commitment to you.
All right, let's go to Taylor Dill for your Daily Hour news break.
Good morning, I'm Teo Dill, and welcome to your TDH News Break brought to you by the great folks at Peoples. We're still the Peoples you know, just growing in new ways to meet the world ahead. A teenager was injured by a gunshot Wednesday night in Devonshire. Police say the 18-year-old man who was shot late Wednesday night has now been released from hospital after receiving treatment for his injuries, thankfully. The shooting happened around 10:40 p.m. near Mary Victoria Road and Alexandra Road, and officers say the investigation into the confirmed firearm incident is still ongoing. Anybody who saw what happened is urged to contact Detective Sergeant Mark Raposo at 717-2487 or mraposo@bps.pm or the Serious Crime Unit directly at 247-1739. And the sugar tax has led to a noticeable reduction in the consumption of sugary soft drinks by the local adult population. This positive update from Health Minister Kim Wilson during yesterday's budget briefing press event.
Many jurisdictions, in fact, Bermuda did receive accolades from the Caribbean because many jurisdictions that implement programs such as a sugar tax where there is a financial detriment to discourage the participation or the consumption of a particular product don't see massive dividends from the health population until a generation. So it has been only a couple of years, but again, the omnibus surveys will confirm that there have been a reduction in the consumption of sugary drinks by the adult population.
And Public Works and Environment Minister Jashay Adams was also present at the briefing, where he shared that in order to address the island-wide presence of feral chickens, the relevant resources have been doubled.
We have doubled our resources in terms of individuals out there calling chickens. So we've doubled the resources. We've also in the process of training farmers so that our local farmers can be trained to how to address those chickens as well. We purchased a number of traps that are now on sale. I think we are about 80% sold of our chicken traps. In fact, we are preparing to order some more. And so we recognize there's an issue.
And following on from yesterday's story, Bermuda's quietly approaching a major demographic turning point, and it is just as significant as what we talked about yesterday on how we've been experiencing more deaths than births now for a decade. Like we established during yesterday's TDH Newsbreak story, births on the island have fallen dramatically, dropping from around 900 babies a year in the 90s to just over 430 today, while deaths now exceed births every year. Now, here's the new detail that might freak you out a little bit more. Bermuda's population is getting older fast. About 18% of residents are now over the age of 65, pushing the island's median age into the mid-40s. That shift is changing the balance between workers and retirees. A generation ago, Bermuda had roughly 5 or 6 working-age adults supporting every retiree. Today, that number is closer to 4 workers per retiree, and demographers expect it could fall to around 3 within just the next 15 to 20 years. This could mean greater pressure on pensions, healthcare systems, and the workforce as a smaller working population supports a growing number of seniors. Basically, Bermuda's entering the same demographic transition already reshaping countries like Japan and Italy. Now, I know that story was, let's say, sobering, but this might make you feel a bit better. It's not just us. We're sitting in about the middle of the OECD in terms of this trend. Here's how Japan, one of the world's leading countries in terms of technology, culture, it's a really important place. They're having very, very similar demographic challenges.
In the minute since this film started, an average of 3 Japanese have died. 1.3 babies have been born. That means the population has shrunk by 1.7 people. Every minute, every day, every year. Keep going at the same rate, and according to the government's own projections, by 2050, Japan will have shrunk by a number equivalent to the current population of Australia.
これまで人類が経験したことのない異常に
And a major ocean documentary with deep Bermudian roots is making its home premiere next week. The Bermuda Zoological Society and the Fidelis Foundation are hosting the exclusive Bermuda debut of If They Were Us, The Humpback Whales of the Sargasso Sea, a new film by Bermudian filmmaker and whale researcher Andrew Stevenson. It's premiering March 11th at the Bermuda Underwater Exploration Institute, and the documentary will follow Stevenson and his daughters as they spend years studying North Atlantic humpback whales right here in the Sargasso Sea. Take a look. As far as the weather's concerned, we've got a really nice stretch of it settling in across the island. Today brings a whole bunch of sunshine and light winds with temperatures climbing to about 72 degrees. And as we enter the weekend, the story stays pretty much the same. Plenty of sunshine, light southwesterly breezes, and above average temperatures with highs holding in the low 70s through Saturday and Sunday. And that's your TDH News Break brought to you by our friends at Peoples. I'm Teo Dill. Have a great weekend. And now back to the show.
Thanks, Teo. So when I was looking at the whales, I'm like, whales, like they're like elitists. Like they live like they're like dolphins. It's like they live a life where they just jump and have fun and play. Like they live like billionaires. Or maybe I'm overthinking stuff. Anyway, thanks for that, Tay. Real quickly, days of the year today, folks. It's World Day of Prayer. So I'm going to ask you, audience, if you're a praying person, what is one thing that you would pray about today? It's World Day of Prayer. If you're a praying person, what's one thing you would pray about today? What's one thing you'd pray about? Let's see. Healing, world health, healing health, man. That would be my prayer. Healing, world health. With all the war and everything that's going on, it would definitely be health. And I know this is people saying peace, and I agree. Peace in the Middle East. I think health is a part of peace, yeah, but health. I'd like us to see a healthy world. Our island home, says Charles, and world peace, says Michelle. Good health and peace, says Dr. Anthony Richardson. Folks, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back from this break, we've got the Honorable Minister of Tourism, Transport, Culture, and Sport, Owen Darrell, on, and we're going to be discussing the Bermuda's new ride-share legislation that has been tabled. Stick with us.
People's ACW, located at King Edward VII Memorial Hospital, carries over-the-counter medicines, toys, cards, and even toiletries. Our knowledgeable staff are there whether you're at emergency, visiting family, or a member of BHB staff, to show you our best even when you're feeling your worst. People's ACW, we're here for you.
Take a look at our workforce for construction workers and tradesmen. Durable, stretchable in all the right places, and plenty of options for tools and accessories. Paired with our wide range of tough and comfortable footwear, you can't go wrong. As you can see, Medical House really is a one-stop shop for everybody. We can't wait to see you.
See it all at our new expanded location on Bakery Lane.
Discover Drop It, your go-to grocery delivery. Browse and select from a wide range of groceries, from fresh produce to daily essentials. Our friendly drivers deliver fresh groceries to your door fast, saving you time and hassle. With Drop It, you get fresh groceries delivered fast so you can focus on what really matters. Drop It, freshness at your doorstep, delivered to your door with Lindo's. Why go anyplace else?
What lasts isn't what you buy, but what it becomes. With the HSBC MasterCard credit card, every spend quietly adds to a story shaped by intention and offers what matters most. Support that meets you where you are. Protection that preserves what you choose. Confidence for the unexpected. Peace of mind wherever your story leads. Start your next chapter. Use your card today. HSBC is licensed to conduct banking and investment business by the Bermuda Monetary Authority.
What if the age that really matters isn't the one on your ID? You probably know your chronological age, the number of candles on your last birthday cake. But there's another kind of age that may be even more important, your biological age. This reflects how old your body truly is at the cellular level. It is influenced by your genes, your environment, and the choices you make every day. Two people can both be 40 years old on paper, but one may have the body of a healthy 30-year-old, while the other is biologically closer to 50. The difference? Lifestyle choices on nutrition, sleep, stress, exercise, and exposure to toxins. That means you have some control over your biological clock, and that's exactly what makes it so powerful. Because when it comes to aging, it's not just about living longer, it's about living better. Want to know your predicted biological age today? Download the free Carry Genetics app and fill in the lifestyle questionnaire.
Alrighty, welcome back to the big show. Jamal Hartman here. This is the Daily Hour brought to you by the BAC Group of Companies, HSBC, Bermuda Medicals, Lindo's, People's Pharmacy, and big love to Hot 107.5 for ensuring that we can pump through the radio areas with these most important community conversations. Folks, do not forget to subscribe on our website. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. All right, without further ado, let's bring in our very special guest for the day. We've got the Minister of Tourism, Transport, Culture, and Sport, the Honorable Owen Darrell. Let's give him a warm TDH welcome. Greetings, Minister.
Good day. How are you, Jamal? Good morning.
I'm wonderful. How you doing? I got to ask you before we jump into anything. Got to ask you, it's World Prayer Day. What is one thing that you would pray about publicly on World Prayer Day?
Oh, I'll pray publicly for the health of all my constituents, all my family, all of my friends. If you have good health, then you can continue to do great things in this world. So I'll just pray for continued health, and for those that are not in great health, hopefully they have a speedy recovery. So that would be my prayer on World Prayer Day.
I think we say amen after prayer.
I grew up at St. Paul AME Church. You know that well.
I remember seeing you there a time when I stood up. Minister, you minister start trouble, man. People are not happy. And we talked about the rideshare legislation on Monday, and it was a thing. But let's go back. Let's go back, because as I said about the conversation earlier regarding education, these things don't just appear.
Absolutely.
Where did this legislation come from? Like, how did we get here?
Well, Jamal, I'll start this, and I have to push back on your comment about ministers starting trouble. I tell people, especially in my office, I tell my friends, my family, and all 1,150 constituents of Pembroke East that I represent, that my number one goal for coming to work every day is service. You would have known that before this rule, I spent 15 years as an educator, and I listened intently to your conversation just a few minutes ago on education. And the mantra there was the same. It was about service. And I'm happy that there are some individuals that I see on the street that they may not have been, I may not have been their favorite teacher maybe 20 years ago, but they come up to me and they say, Mr. Darrell, you know what? Thank you. Thank you for teaching me these lessons. Thank you for showing me things and helping me with things that I may not have been able to see at the time. And I take the same approach to this job, and I take it very seriously, that we're trying to serve. You would also know that I have some history in this transportation industry. I drove taxi for many years, going back 25 years, when I returned from college. I did get into the taxi industry, so I know this history. I know some of the challenges that taxi industry has had, and I also have heard some of the challenges that the consumers have had. So it's about service, and it is about modernizing transportation in Bermuda. And this goes back to, since I've been in this seat a year now, we've talked about modernizing not only TCD, we've modernized the bus service. So now you can see when your bus is coming. We've ordered 2 550-seat ferries. So we've modernized the ferry service. And I know this summer people will be very happy with the increased ferry lift and what it can do and how you can get around this island, whether it be tourists and locals. And for many years, the public and visitors alike have said we must modernize our taxi industry. And this is a step in doing so. And while we are doing it, we are trying to preserve the legacy of taxis first and preserve their business.
So what, in the most layman term, what problem is the government trying to solve with this Motor Car Ride Sharing Amendment Act 2026?
We're trying to improve the accessibility and the availability and the reliability of individuals moving about this country. We've heard tourists come to Bermuda and they love the place, but they say, the number one issue, we would have liked it if we would have been able to reliably get to dinner and reliably be able to call for transportation and get home at a reasonable hour. You've heard the stories of people saying, well, you know what, you've had a great dinner, but let's wait to the cleaning staff clean up so they can give you a ride back to your hotel because an hour has gone by and a transportation has not come. This issue has not just come about recently. It's been going on for many years. We're trying to fix the issue where individuals that would like to move can reliably get transportation when they want it. And they have to have confidence that the taxi is going to come. I mean, Jamal, I heard you talking earlier on Monday. There have been stories of individuals. I had a young lady tell me the other day that, her and her friend just wanted to go to town and hang out to a party. And they drove. It was raining really, really hard. The car broke down in Hamilton. At about 11 p.m., they called 2 different taxi dispatch companies, and they could not get a taxi to pick them up, to take them from one part of Hamilton to Front Street. And it is raining really hard. So, they just had to sit there, wait till the rain started to walk to Front Street. That's unacceptable when we're talking about modernizing transportation in this country. So we're not trying to, I heard people say we're trying to collapse the taxi industry. We're trying to ruin the taxi industry. We're not. We're trying to complement it. And we've put provisions in place in this legislation that taxi industry will get first preference.
Well, speak to that, because you said, and I've read it, and I encourage everyone to read it because it's very considering. It's very it's not long legislation. It's about 8 pages. But you said the goal is to modernize transportation while complementing, not replacing the taxi industry. How will these two systems coexist?
Well, what happens is if a rideshare individual would like to sign up, they have to be part of an approved taxi dispatch service that has an electronic app. And I'm pleased to announce that there are 3 that have been approved. I know, the public likes to talk about one, but there are 3. And one that was recently approved is actually being run by the BTOA. So congratulations to them for getting on board and getting a dispatch service up and running. They will get their app up and running, and they will have first preference with all other dispatch companies to get involved in this, and will ensure that taxis go first. So what I'm saying is that if you call for a vehicle, and you do it, everybody knows how these apps work now, it will go to the taxi industry first. And only if the taxi industry or taxi drivers do not pick up the call, then it will go to the rideshare drivers. I will tell you this, Jamal. I've got the stats, and I know they've been talking about they haven't heard the stats. You will be the first to hear that the average call on the apps that are being used is actually picked up in 8.2 seconds. It's picked up. 17,000 calls were canceled in 2025. 80,000 of those calls went unanswered. And Jamal, this is the one here that people will know about and people all over this country will relate to. The average pickup time of a taxi right now is 37 minutes. I'm sorry, but in the modern world, if I am traveling for work or if I am traveling for vacation, when I am looking for transportation, if I don't get confirmation that a car is coming within 60 seconds, I start to panic.
Well, one of the concerns, and I'll read these two questions, then I'll go to your opposite number, MP Dwayne Robinson's comment. But the BTOA is writing, says if the government has not been monitoring whether taxis meet the legal requirements to operate for up to 16 hours per day, how can the ministry accurately claim there is a shortage of taxis? Then they go on to say, can you provide the most recent verified data from TCD showing how many taxis are operating daily and for how many hours? And I think Dwayne Robinson, the MP from Bermuda Alliance, stated that, while the OBA may agree with modernization, enforcement seems to be the challenge. Like if the BTOA and others are saying, well, we're not even enforcing the current rules or regulations, how are we to know that this is going to improve things?
Well, Jamal, I will say this. There are many laws, unfortunately, not only in Bermuda, but around the world, that are difficult to enforce, every single one of them. I mean, we have issues in this country where the police have openly said that they are stretched. We have issues in this country where the traffic officers are stretched. And while we may look to increasing the enforcement of these traffic officers, I can sit here and be honest, and everybody knows this. You're not going to catch every infraction through enforcement. What would the BTOA like for the TCD and the enforcement office to start snatching people's taxi medallions that they've worked hard for? That's unacceptable, and that's not realistic. So while we can sit here and we can admit that enforcement should have improved, it hasn't improved in maybe 50 years. And while we can work on that, I've talked to the Public Service Vehicle Licensing Board about stepping up the enforcement. We've talked about the traffic officers. Let's be honest. There are on record, I have in my email, where attempts at enforcement have actually been rejected by the BTOA themselves. So it's never the right time to enforce. When cruise ships come in and the traffic officers up there trying to enforce some of the decorum of all public service vehicle license, people push back. Why would you be enforcing at this time? Do you think that this is the right time to enforce? And I will say it very bluntly, Jamal. If we don't put a regulated system in place to modernize this taxi industry, it is a possibility that someone outside of this country will come in, they will not listen to any regulations, and that could be the demise of an industry, not the government. Let's be clear. And you know that as well as I. In other jurisdictions, players have entered the market. They do not follow regulations. And as a result, the customer, the consumer who wants to get where they want to get immediately decides to make the choice. So I'm saying that here the government has made this provision. They've protected the taxi industry, and we're trying to modernize.
So you just answered my question. I was going to say, so you believe this legislation is more to protect the taxis?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Because again, I've said it already. I am on record of saying that much more could be done to enforce. But are we going to sit here for the next 20, 30 years and hope that enforcement gets to the place where we need it to do? We're doing everything we can with the resources we have, and we'll try to increase those resources. But the alternative is to do nothing, and the consumer will look for alternative ways to move, and that will hurt the taxi industry way more than they are claiming that this legislation will hurt.
Yeah, but it seems like, again, even I mentioned enforcement from MP Robinson and the BTOA, and it seems like a lot of people are in support of the modernization. Now, I said on this show before when rideshare first started, Uber, I was living in New York City. I refused to do it.
Absolutely. I was the exact same way.
No, I'm a late bloomer, so I wasn't interested in doing it. I do use Lyft after Uber reported me for not putting my mask on during the pandemic. That's a whole thing. We'll talk about that another time, buddy. But I do use Lyft, and I want to share this. So when rideshare first started, it undercut the taxi industry. So they came in and they were charging less, right? And now the pricing is beyond because they have obviously the most convenient.
Yeah, the consumer is willing to pay more because of convenience.
For the service. But in many airports, right, and if you travel to the US at least, in many airports, taxis still have the privilege of being in, close to where passengers are coming out, all that. And if you want a ride share, you have to go all the way in some other area to get in it now, right? All these kind of provisions are going to be made for local taxis to ensure that it's not just the app that's saying, okay, they're first, but positioning as well.
Taxis will continue to get first priority in all aspects of this legislation.
Okay. All right, let's go to the audience. We've got quite a few questions real quickly. We've got Mark Arthur says, good morning, Minister Darrell. Was there any ever consideration to ask companies like Lyft or Uber to implement a ride-share service on island?
Absolutely not. The Progressive Labour Party came into this government, and our first election campaign was Bermudians first. We absolutely will not go that way. And this is our response to the public, who if some members of the public have been asking for that. This is our response. We want a regulated modernization to protect the taxi industry. Jamal, you would know this, and anyone that knows me knows my history in the taxi industry. They would know my family's history in the taxi industry. There's no way that I am going to sit in this seat and allow for Bermudians to be disenfranchised by modernizing the taxi industry.
All right. We've got Sean Smith. He says, why are you limiting the consumer's choice? Why not let the market dictate whether or not the taxi industry remains?
Well, that is a good point. This is a policy decision by the government. Taxi drivers have long held up this country when it comes to tourism, when we were in our tourism heyday back in the 70s, 80s, even the 90s. And we have to give the taxis who have made significant investments an opportunity to continue to lead transportation when it comes to taxi transportation in this country. And this is our way of saying, listen, you get first right of refusal. You are first. If you cannot, I gave the number earlier. If there are 80,000 unanswered calls, then the government has to do something to give other options. There are strong views that we should just open it up and let the market dictate how this goes. But again, we are trying to do exactly what some in the industry are saying we're doing the opposite. We're trying to protect Bermudians and their investment in this industry.
All right. Charles H. Jefferson II says, was there consideration given to allowing the taxi owners who spent hundreds of thousands of dollars for their licenses to profit from ride shares as opposed to private entities? Can BDA support 3 entities?
Well, we'll see how it works out. But right now, as I started, my job is to serve the public. And we must do more because there are individuals in certain parts of this country that do not live on Front Street. They do not live directly in the city of Hamilton. They do not live close to a hotel. And they struggle to get to work. They struggle to get to the laundromat. They struggle to get to nurseries and pick up their children on time. We must do more to provide options for them to modernize their experience in getting around this country.
All right. Shonette Sumner says, if the current system isn't being adequately managed with regard to poor operator dress and conduct decorum, all taxis being on the road, etc., how will this new rideshare system be managed?
It will be managed. I said we'll be looking to increase the enforcement officers. We've had that. We'll be looking at the Public Service Vehicle Licensing Board to put further provisions in place, and we'll move towards improving the enforcement. I've said that internally with this team that we must do more, and we will do more. But at the same time, 2 things could be true at the same time. We work on the enforcement and we increase the supply so that individuals, locals, and visitors can be able to move around this country in a modern manner.
All right. BTOA says, Minister, what formal data analysis did the government conduct before drafting the rideshare bill? And can you point to any public report that measures taxi demand versus supply across Bermuda?
I welcome the BTOA to listen intently to the debate in the House of Assembly this evening. It will be a late night, and I know some are not on island, so they'll have to stay up even a lot later to hear the debate. But all stats and data and how we got to this point will be shared. But I mean, you know, if you just walk and you talk to the man or the woman on the street, there's some data right there that if you listen to the stories and you listen to people and you have that connection, which I do, you know, Jamal, you would know that there's not a weekend, not an evening that I do not attend community events in this community. And you hear the stories, all sorts of stories. Not everything is about transportation, but you hear it. So we've got to do something to serve the people. We cannot just be protecting one industry wholly, but at the same time, we have made provisions to do so.
All right. Bermuda Live says government can't fix the taxi industry. It's the taxi drivers that need to fix their industry. Also on the front line of hospitality industry, witness firsthand the scams, the refusals, the disregard. Is this, as you said earlier, this stuff played a heavy role in moving forward with tabling this legislation?
It's interesting you say that, Jamal, because I was listening to your earlier debate on education, and I think it was the BTOA that actually made a comment that said it's a community that needs to fix education. I would argue that, you know, it is also the taxi industry that has to take a hard look within themselves. While the BTOA is doing a lot of stuff to speak out about this legislation, I don't see the same effort putting to hold their own members accountable. I do not. And you would also know my history, Jamal, and I'll say it again. You know, I was very involved in the taxi industry 25 years ago. I actually sat on a taxi association, and I was trying everything I could to assist the taxi industry to help themselves even then. So this matter of service isn't a new one. I've looked at this from different angles, and it's not for me to decide the agenda or the objectives of the Bermuda taxi, the BTOA, but they may have to take a look within and say, hey, you know what? It's clear that government cannot fully enforce this industry. Let us step in and help to enforce our own industry to protect our own investments.
Govern ourselves accordingly. As they go. Sherilyn Pringle says, dear Mr. Minister, when will minibuses be regulated? Unbelievable that government has been able to provide regulation for rideshare about 10 plus years, no regulations for minibuses. And let me just add to that. That was a big conversation I had the other night at a dinner where people are saying, you know, it seems like the minibuses came and that made it harder for taxis. And now we have the rideshare making it harder for taxis. So I think that's a fair question indeed.
Absolutely. I mean, I look at the minibus debate. There is a need for minibuses. The minibuses are just like I'm talking about rideshare here. The minibuses have come into the market and they've actually provided a service that some taxi drivers refuse to provide. I mean, there's no shortage of stories of seeing guests that are waiting to get back to their cruise ship, but because they are perceived to be still wet or they're perceived to have some sand on their feet, that a taxi operator will not take them. No, there are some operators that do a very good job of taking sheets and shower curtains and covering their seats and picking up those guests. So that's not everyone, but there is a market for minibuses. The government has regulated minibuses by putting a moratorium on them a few years ago. So there are no more minibuses that are coming into service at this time. So that's the first step. And you are absolutely right, Ms. Pringle. There is some looks that we are doing. This government, under my watch, we put specific officers in specific locations last summer to help to police and regulate some of the actions of minibus drivers. And we were actually applauded for that by some taxi drivers to say, well, thank you very much. It's about time that some things be put in place for some of the actions that were happening. So we are taking a serious look at all aspects of public service vehicle licenses. And while it's not going to change overnight, as I said before, Jamal, we need to do multiple things to try to get ourselves modernized. So while we can sit here and I'm open to criticism, and we can criticize the things that the government has done or has not done over the years, I think it is time that we take a serious look to try to modernize it where we can, when we can, in the best interest of the traveling public and visitors.
Well, I honestly thought that this was something, well, it seems so, unless you're in the industry, it seems very popular for a lot of people that you are moving towards modernizing. I think the disagreement from people in the general public is possibly the enforcement, and the disagreement from those with a vested interest is its impact on their bottom line. The taxi, if I'm not mistaken, the taxi license costs a lot of money, 6 figures. I think I read something where someone to have this license would be 1,000. Did I read that correctly?
Absolutely, yes.
So
remember, that will be renewable every year. They would have to pay that every year, and there's no guarantee that a rideshare permit will be renewed the following year. There is no guarantee. They have to reapply every year. And hey, I've said this, and I'm on record of saying this, I think last week. If we go through a year and we see that taxis have picked up, and these unanswered calls have gone down, the cancellations have gone down, and the average pickup is going down, somebody said it earlier, the market will actually decide that, hey, you know what? I'm not calling a rideshare because the taxis are actually now more reliable. If we get to that and we see that a year or two, the rideshare person may say, you know what? It was not lucrative for me. I could only go out when it was busy. I could only go out on holidays. You know what? I'm not going to get back into this. I'm going to allow the industry to do what they do. So
I don't like to.
That's what they say.
I don't like to disagree with people for the sake of disagreeing. I don't like to agree with people for the sake of I like them. That's just not how I move. What I will say with you here is that I outside of the enforcement, I just don't see how this is a bad thing. Data, stats, numbers, whatever you want. Because to me, it still gives me, if I'm the operator, the right to decide my own destiny.
Absolutely.
I'm an entrepreneur, and I have some issues with my industry as far as government, but there are some spaces that allow each of us to decide our own destiny. But for people who are not understanding that, what would you say to them? Because look, let's be real. Bermuda has always been a conservative, slower country when it comes to evolving. We don't like change, or should I say, most Bermudians don't seem to like change. We deem change as not necessary, not forward enough, not needed. What would you say to those folks?
Oh, I'm one of those, right? There's some individuals that are my friends, and they would brand me as a traditionalist. They would brand me as kind of old school. And I was like you, Jamal. I refused to use the rideshare apps overseas, and part of it because I was not familiar and comfortable with technology. I wouldn't even download the app until I was in a situation and someone forced me to download Uber when I was traveling. And now I tell you, I use it majority of the time unless it is more convenient to get in a taxi. I tell you, if I go to a certain places in the States, as you said, I walk out the door and the taxis are right there. I jump in one. I'm not walking across the street, up 2 floors, down a hallway to get a ride share. I'm not doing it. If a taxi is there, I'm going to get into it. I don't care if it's yellow, it's blue. I don't care if it has tinted windows or not. I just need to know that I can get to my destination when I can. So I know that in Bermuda, we are one of the only places in the world. Only places. I went to Jamaica in October, and at the last minute, I had to go pick up a tie because I had to go to Parliament. And I didn't know how to find a taxi. Somebody says, oh, we have Uber. And I pressed the button, and I'm telling you, it was a little car. It wasn't a vehicle that I would, usually get in. It wasn't a vehicle that was fit for a quote unquote minister of the government. But guess what? It was there. It was reliable. It got me to the shop. I was able to get a tie. I was able to get back and able to make it to the Jamaica House of Parliament in time for their assault. So I did it not because it was glamorous. I did it because it was the most convenient option available at the time.
How much consultation did you have with the taxi industry, like BTOA, number one? And number two, are there any PLP ministers or politicians with special interest in the modernization or the apps?
Well, I mean, you'd have to define special interest. I mean, you can say I have interest. I'm a taxi owner. Everybody knows that. It's on record. So people would say, well, the minister owns a taxi. Why is he doing this? Because it's not about me. It is about the individuals of which I serve, right? I will use another one. There used to be a politician who was the only provider of milk in this country. I didn't hear anybody say, well, we shouldn't buy milk because of who has interest in the milk company. I mean, do we all go to the registrar and look at every single company and see who owns it and then decide, I didn't know that this person was a shareholder. So I really do not put much stock into that argument. I call it as deflection as to what is needed. And that's that. I mean, that's
fair. Honestly, that's fair.
I just be honest about it.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, public consultation, how many public consultations did you have with maybe the BTOA, maybe cab drivers, whoever's impacted by this? How many public consultations we had?
I will say this, that we have met with many stakeholders. Jamal, I've probably said it 10 times here. I've been involved in this taxi industry almost about 25 years. So there is not a day that I walk and I know people and they call me on my phone and we sit down and have discussions. Some of those discussions may be heated. I went to have lunch the other day, and outside of the restaurant, somebody said, "Mr. Minister, can we have a conversation?" And after 10 minutes of having a conversation, they was like, "Oh, okay, thank you. I get it a little bit more." We've talked to the Bermuda Hotels Association. We've talked to the BHA. We've talked to, as recently as yesterday, the Chamber of Commerce. We've listened to people who send in complaints about certain transportation issues that they've had. And we've talked to the BTOA. Now, the BTOA are on record of saying that they do not support rideshare. It is okay. I get it. But, to go in a back and forth and accuse me of walking out of meetings and refusing to meet, it's just not true. While the BTOA has 160 members, I've been told, I sent out direct mail to all 3,000 public service vehicle license holders. 3,000. Some of them called me and said, I want to know more about this. Young drivers came in, experienced drivers came in. They sat in my office and they had consultation. So while the BTOA may feel and they like to position themselves as the only stakeholders in the transportation industry, it's actually just not true. And that's not for me to say, what their membership base is and what their reach is. But I know the BTOA had 2 public meetings. Did not invite me to those public meetings. Did not invite me. Did I have representation there? Absolutely. Did I know everything that was said? Absolutely. Did I try to send a document there so individuals could get facts? Absolutely. So to say that there has been no consultation is absolutely false. And Jamal, it's okay not to agree on a position. But like I started, I will finish this exactly how I started. I was elected to serve the country of Bermuda. And not only by the weekend and by night, I serve the 1,150 residents of Pembroke East. But my day job is the minister responsible for transport and tourism, amongst other things. And I must serve the country of Bermuda in that capacity.
One final question from the audience about credit cards, because we have Bermuda Live saying we still have drivers refusing to put credit card devices in their taxis. Today's travelers is using a credit card rather than cash in many instances. Charles H. Jefferson II says modernization also includes credit cards. When we start requiring that as well? Now, is that something that will be going forward a part of like mandatory, or is it something you're encouraging them to do? Or is that something where you're saying, it's not worth the hassle right now because they're already saying you're trying to control their industry?
Jamal, and that's the point. Many taxi operators will tell you straight that they pay for their medallion. They will tell you that they are independent operators and they can do what they like outside of what the regulations are on the Motor Car Act. So, while it is unfortunate, I saw, as we've heard the stories, I came out of a hotel the other day and it was a young lady standing there waiting for a taxi. I said, there's 5 taxis sitting there. Why don't you jump in one? And she says, I do not have cash and none of those vehicles take credit cards. So I am willing to wait for a vehicle that does take credit cards. This rideshare app and this rideshare program does not deal with cash. It does not deal with street hailing. You can only get a rideshare vehicle if you use one of the approved apps that they are connected to, and those apps only operate when the consumer puts their credit card into the system. So I've heard it. I've absolutely heard it, and I acknowledge that there are taxi drivers that have been in the industry for a long time, and they are making choices as to how they wish to run their business. Owen Darrell, the Minister of Tourism and Transport, Culture and Sport, is trying to modernize transportation. I am not trying to make the running of someone's business difficult. That is not my mantra here. That is not my objective.
Minister, I know you have to run, go to the house, but Yikes20 says, bottom line, Bermudians want change, but don't want change. A sad people we are. And then we've got a few people in the audience who are saying, Dorian says, poor example, Minister, to his defense, his family owned the milk business prior to becoming an MP. I think you were referring to the milk business earlier. But that said, I just want hope that, and you can answer this or not, consideration has been made. And I think about my nana when I left Bermuda, went to school in Alabama. And that was the first time where we went to Walmart and she had to take her card and put it on the machine.
She wouldn't do it.
And my point is, has it been taken into consideration that some older people may not be technologically advanced? Some non-Bermudians may not want to download another app with the new technology that may come with this. What helps with those considerations?
Jamal, it is just a matter of, educating the individuals as to, what improvements their business could make. Let me give you another story. I have stories that can go on forever and ever, but I had a young man and his father actually reached out to me and said, we want to come talk to you. I actually didn't know what they wanted to talk to, but as I tell people that I don't run from a conversation. They respectfully asked, they respectfully said, who's coming? This is what we want to talk about. So they came into my office and the young man was holding like a laptop, a tablet in his hand, and he had a credit card machine, like a credit card machine that you would see at a restaurant. And I'm like, what is that? And he said, my tablet is the new electronic meters that we're using. So they're no longer, most taxis are no longer using those old analog meters. So he had his meter on a tablet and he had the credit card machine. And he says, yeah, majority of the people I pick up welcome that I have a credit card machine. And I said, well, isn't there a fee to that? He says, yeah, the amount of money that I make way outweighs any fee that I have to pay to use this credit card machine. So that was a business decision he made. And he says, you know what? This is an interesting comment, Jamal. He said, you know what? Majority of my work is from the corporate variety. And he says, you know what? Any opportunity I get, I try my hardest to go to, we would know it as back of town. And he says, a lot of times, I do those jobs kind of as a pay it forward exercise. He says, if I'm going into town, I have some time, the call comes in, I'll do it. I'll tell the individual, you know what, have a good day. It was my pleasure to serve. And that's the type of stories that you hear about the taxi industry. So, I have no interest. Somebody said to me last night, I hope you're not going to get up in the house and bash the taxi industry. Absolutely not. It is about service. It is about protecting their industry. And is it about modernization where Bermudians can move as well as visitors can move when they want, efficiently, and where they want.
I never understood why people always thank politicians and, thanks for your service, this and that. I didn't. But I do say this often, that I could never get in politics. And people say, no, I said, no, I don't have the temperament. I'm not made for it. And I said, you all will be calling me Donald Trump. And people laugh because I believe in making decisions that I believe in the best interest of people. And what's in the best interest of people is not always going to be popular. At the end of the day, I don't agree with, as you know, and many others know, I don't agree with a lot of government policy and legislation, right?
Yeah,
but
you,
I
you
just
allowed
feel
on
like
record for that.
this is long overdue. My concern I do share is I do believe that consultation should be a part of the process at times, but not all times.
Mhm.
And the reason I don't believe it should be part of the process at all times is because sometimes, like, okay, something was shared by Minister Alexa Lightbourne about the media stuff, and I highly disagree with it. I did, because it impacts what we're doing. So I understand the position of taxi drivers. I really sympathize with them. But at the same time, as a consumer,
Mhm.
I understand the need for the modernization. So my hope is that everyone can come to the table. Hopefully we can have the BTO 8-1 and really get to a place where, like I spoke about education, we spoke about education earlier. I kept saying, we're pointing fingers, we're doing this, that, and the other, but we're forgetting about the student. That's my hope with this situation, is that whatever side you're on, that we understand, if nothing else, that the consumer, that is the person or the people who should be first on mind when any decision is made. And that's where I believe cooler heads can prevail. Minister, before you head out, is there anything that you believe people need to know that likely once this legislation passes, what should they realistically expect to see in the system immediately?
I would like to finish where I started, Jamal, and I want to remind everyone, especially the taxi owners and operators, that even when this system, rideshare legislation, is passed and it comes on board, taxis will get first preference every single time. They will get first preference. And for the consumer, we are giving you additional supply, additional options so that you can feel comfortable getting transportation when you need it, where you need it. So we are looking to do a holistic approach. We've started to modernize buses. People are very happy with that. We've continued to modernize the ferry service, and we have a ways to go in some of the ferries there, and I acknowledge that. But this is all part of modernization and moving Bermuda forward.
I like this. Is my final one. If you could have done one thing differently with this bill, what would you have done, if anything?
If I could have done one thing differently
moving this bill forward, what would you have done?
Well, that's difficult. I mean, we will see what comes out of the debate this afternoon. And anyone that knows me know that feedback is a gift, and I appreciate feedback from all sectors. People that are my friends, people that are not my friends, people in the industry, people outside of the industry, and I will always listen to the feedback of individuals. And if adjustments need to be made, we will make those adjustments. But it's a difficult question right now, Jamal. There are things that maybe we decided along the process that needed to change, and we did change them. You know that when this first came out, it was being branded as a pilot, and we got feedback from the stakeholders that said, we're not interested in a pilot. We want you to move forward, and we want you to move forward with intention. That was a change that we made. So you would notice that the whole pilot part of this dropped off some time ago. So at every single step that we are going, we are listening, and we are making adjustments when they are needed. So I appreciate your question. That's something that I will be reflecting on for the rest of the day as to what are some of the things, because it is always good as a politician to reflect and see, okay, and I learned from a long time ago, someone told me, they said, listen, your job is to make decisions. Decision making sometimes is very, very tough. And you have to also acknowledge that there will be some people that will agree with the decisions made, some people that would not. But I sit in the place of, if I am making the decision in the best interest of the people of which I serve, I can sleep well at night.
Mr. Darrell, thank you for joining us. And folks, I would encourage you to listen to the debate later on today. I believe that quite a few people are asking what stakeholders. So can you just define stakeholders for the audience real quickly?
What is individuals that would use or need taxis on a regular basis. So like I think I mentioned before, the list is very extensive of the individuals we talk to, but the big stakeholders are the Bermuda Tourism Authority. We use some of their data as well. We talk to them, the Bermuda Hotels Association, the Chamber of Commerce. When you talk about stakeholders, one thing that the Progressive Labor Party does is canvass its people. You go to people and if people do not know where Pembroke East is, it starts by Glebe Road, it's Palmetto Road, and the like. That's the area of which I represent. And you would be shocked that you would think, well, that's so close to Hamilton. But you'd be surprised as to how many people you hear that have to walk either long distances to get to the bus stop, or some cases walk all the way to Hamilton because they cannot rely on transportation. So we've had stakeholders that have, some of this consultation even precedes me being minister. But you will hear in tonight's debate, I will list out the entire list of stakeholders this evening.
All right, Minister Darrell, thank you so much for your time. Folks, I'd encourage you to listen to the debate. I'm sure we'll have our friends at the BTOA on over the next week or two to share their thoughts. Likely the legislation will be passed with numbers, but I wish everyone the best in this situation, and seems like you're in for a long night. Have a good day, Minister.
Thank you, Jamal. Take care.
Right. Minister, the Honorable Owen Darrell, Minister of Tourism, Transport, Culture, and Sport. Folks, this is an interesting one, but we're going to take our final break. We'll come back after this break. I will give my final thoughts after the daily play. All right. Wow. This is, stick with us. We'll be back after this.
Dreaming of expanding your business? With BDC's Loan Guarantee Program, we support your ambitions. Get up to 75% guarantee on bank or credit union loans up to $300,000. Just your vision and our support. Apply today and unlock new business opportunities. BDC, Bermuda business starts here.
Looking for the best care for your pets? Novazoc Feed and Supply has everything you need, from top quality foods to toys and supplies. We've got it all. Join our frequent buyer program and earn rewards every time you shop. Plus, we've been awarded the Clever Customer Initiative program for helping you save more. And don't forget, we open an hour early on Saturdays so you can get a head start on your pet care. Visit us today or shop online for easy pickup or delivery. Your pets will thank you.
For over 70 years, Bermuda Pest Control has been protecting homes and businesses island-wide. We offer a full suite of services, including rodent control, termite fumigation, and general insect control and maintenance. Our team of experts will quickly and efficiently eliminate any pest problem you may have. With Bermuda Pest Control, you can enjoy a pest-free home in no time. We're committed to providing fast, reliable, and solution-driven services for our customers. It's what we've been doing since 1952. Call Bermuda Pest Control today and say goodbye to pests for good.
Every space has a message, whether it's a store, a government office, or a doctor's waiting room. With Store Tunes Radio, transform your environment with customized music and professional messaging that keeps people informed, engaged, and at ease. Easy to use, built for organizations of every kind. Powered by Bermuda Communications Group. Store Tunes Radio, the soundtrack to better customer experiences. Visit StoreTunesRadio.com to learn more.
The Office of Consumer Affairs protects residents by promoting fairness, safety, and transparency in the marketplace across the island. We investigate complaints, manage recalls, educate the public, and enforce consumer protection laws to ensure fair treatment for all. Our team supports consumers by resolving disputes, providing guidance, and helping residents understand their rights and responsibilities. We work with businesses to encourage compliance, ethical practices, and trust, helping create a stable and competitive economy. Through education, enforcement, and outreach, Consumer Affairs helps keep Bermuda's marketplace safe, informed, and accountable.
All righty, welcome back to the big show. Thanks again to the Minister of Tourism, Transport, Culture, and Sport, the Honorable Owen Darrell. Again, folks, if you appreciated this morning's discussion about education and conversation with the Minister, give us a thumbs up, a love, a like. Make sure you share the conversation with your friends, your family, your colleagues. We want to give a big thanks to our partners, BAC Group of Companies, HSBC, Bermuda Medical House, Lindo's, People's Pharmacy, and big love to Hot 107.5 for ensuring that we can pump through the radio airwaves with these most important community conversations on a regular basis. It is time for the Daily Play, brought to you by Bermuda Trivia, now available at stores throughout Bermuda. Follow Bermuda Trivia on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, and TikTok to find out why it's Bermuda's favorite trivia game. The new sports edition is now in stores. But folks, it's the things you should know today. Are you ready? And I'll tell you why I should know this. And some of you out there are going to get this very fast, but I wouldn't have. Here's your question of the day. A standard netball game has a total of how many players on the court at one time? Yep, 14 says Traveling Trotty. Stacey Ann Brown says 14. Yeah, it's 14. So I was at my niece's netball game on Saturday, and I'm a loud cheerleader. So I was, coaching from the side. I don't know the rules of netball, and so after, man, you don't know. I said, I know. I didn't know they couldn't move in certain places, but I can still be Uncle number one. But it's 14, 7 each. Yes, 7 each team. Brother Richard knew that. I didn't. Charles had 9, so I don't feel bad. Charles got it wrong. But yeah, folks, I say that because I try to support my nieces and family when I can when I'm back in Bermuda. So it was really nice seeing people down there, watching young people in their extracurricular activities. And to close it out regarding the conversation this morning about education, I always used to say that well-trained individuals, that's what school prepares us with, a training ground. But education takes place beyond the classroom. And there's a huge responsibility. One thing I will say is that every last person this morning seemed to have an opinion on what's wrong with education. But how many of us really truly believe that we have the solution to fix it? If it were that easy, it'd probably be done. But it's not. The same goes with the conversation regarding the modernization of taxis, right? I think what we forget is, from a stakeholder perspective, Bermudians are fed up with the taxi industry. Let's just call it what it is. But it's one of those things, and I said this the other day, where the innocent suffer for the guilty. I was always very protective. When I worked in tourism, I took my job to heart because I knew that my best friend, who's a taxi driver, and uncles and people, when I did my job well, they benefited. They were able to feed their families. I told you, I've only had one bad experience in Bermuda, and that was we tried to get a cab, I believe last year, the night before Cup match, to go down the field from up Southampton, and we just couldn't get anyone. My boy's wife ended up taking us, I believe. So I cannot relate to folks who had bad experiences in Bermuda with cabs, but I would hate to believe that all cab drivers are guilty or wrong. But what I'm sure we can all admit, if we put our bias aside, is that the current situation is not conducive for a destination that's already failing in tourism. And sometimes we make emotive decisions, comments, and everything's based on our feelings. Everyone wants to speak about data. Data this, data that. Somewhere along the line must be the human element. The human element. And the human element means that not just from a taxi driver perspective, where they may lose out if they don't do their job properly. But that person who's stuck in the rain, who may need a ride somewhere, or that person who desperately needs to get to work. One thing I've learned in life is that a lot of the problems that we face, the solutions are within all of us. And while I'm no friend or fan of a lot of the things that the government has done, I always tell you all, I couldn't be in politics because I don't believe in democracy. I told you all that. That's not popular, but I don't. Because democracy means that you end up with Donald Trump as your president. Democracy means you end up with the most popular person, not the best person. Democracy means that people who probably aren't educated on topics get a say. So I have no problem with consultation not being had. Let me be very clear with that. I just believe that if decisions are made in the best interest of what the majority of the people want, then we rock with it and we find ways to make it work. Do we need a referendum on stuff? How do we get there? I don't know. I sympathize with the cab drivers. I sympathize with the BTOA. I do. I really do. But I also understand why modernization is important. I sympathize. I believe moving to do something without enforcement, it makes no sense. I agree. But it's on us, the general public, not just the taxi drivers, to hold the government and to hold the enforcement officers accountable. It's on us. Every last one of us. So my hope, honestly, my daily inspiration today for all of you is we can talk till the cows come home. But if we're not willing to fix our own houses, whether we like it or not, someone is going to come and fix it for us. And we don't want that. I look forward to speaking with the BTOA. And I just hope that everyone can approach this in a manner and a way where the consumer remains top of mind. Alrighty, folks. Don't forget to subscribe on our website. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. Thanks again to our partners, BAC Group of Companies, HSBC Bermuda Medical Host, Linda's, People's Pharmacy, and big love to Hot 1075 for ensuring that we can pump through the radio airwaves with these most important community conversations. As always, we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again with you on Monday. And on Monday, we may have a special report for you during the day. So you want to make sure you tune into Monday's show. I'm Jamal Hartman. Please do make it a safe and a great weekend, folks. We are out. Peace.